Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam Prabhu and Mataji. Start with a small kirtan. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yasodhanandanam Vrajajana Ranjanam Yamuna Tiravanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yasodhanandanam Vrajajana Ranjanam Yamuna Tiravanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yasodhanandanam Vrajajana Ranjanam Yamuna Tiravanachari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Let's start with, so today we are going to discuss about 6th canto, 15th chapter, the saints of Narada and Angirisha instructing King Chitraketu, right? Before that, let's quickly do the prayers and then we'll go to the class. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनाशलाकया चक्षुरोन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्या मनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वापदान्तिकम् वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पदान् सहगणा ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेशा गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचना गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुस्तुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्णा चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 रामा राम राम हरे हरे। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भागवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवती नैष्टिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। नमो महावधन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नाम्ने गौरत्विषे नमः। नमः पङ्कजनाभाय नमः पङ्कजमालिने नमः पङ्कजनेत्राय नमस्ते पङ्कजाङ्ग्रये। नमो ब्राह्मण्याय देवाय गोब्राह्मण्याय हिताय च जगद्हिताय कृष्णाय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। नमो ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्ता स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रशान्ते निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 रामा राम राम हरे हरे। मुकुं करोति वाचनं पंगवलगर्मित्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं मानंद महाभुं श्री चैतन्येश्वरं अपवित्रो पवित्रो वा सर्वावस्थकृतयोऽपि वा यस्मरेति पुण्डरीकाक्षं सबाह्याभ्यां धरसुचिः। श्री विष्णु श्री विष्णु श्री विष्णु।
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु जी, दंडवत प्रणाम।
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु, दंडवत प्रणाम। संतोषादित्य प्रभु, हरे कृष्ण पद्मा माता जी, हरे कृष्ण दीपा माता जी, हरे कृष्ण
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु जी,
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु जी, दंडवत प्रणाम।
हरे कृष्ण लीलांद प्रभु जी, दंडवत प्रणाम प्रभु। हरे कृष्ण किचन प्रभु, हरे कृष्ण शारदा माता जी, लक्ष्मी प्रभु, लक्ष्मी माता जी, दंडवत प्रणाम माता जी। हरे कृष्ण वेनिला माता जी, प्रवीण प्रभु, हरे कृष्ण पूजा माता जी, दंडवत।
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु जी।
प्रभु जी।
हरे कृष्णा प्रभु जी, हरे कृष्णा।
हरे कृष्ण मुरलीधर प्रभु,
हरे कृष्णा टू ऑल प्रभु जी एंड माता जी।
हरे कृष्ण। So let's get to the 6th canto, 15th chapter, right? So we've been discussing this in the series of Bhagavata every weekend of Bhagavata class. So we have come a long way, right? We've come until the 15th chapter. So this is, we started the whole story of 6th canto started with Indra insulting his guru, and then from there the whole topics one after another have come in, right? Second, let me open this, share the screen. So the 6th canto, so Indra offends his spiritual master Brihaspati. That's from there the story starts, right? Then the Narayana Kaucha and the Vritrasura story, and then we go back into the life of Vritrasura. Why Vritrasura, who was born as a demon, yet he was able to win over the Lord, or how how he ended up being a pure devotee, and Indra being a Devata and Vritrasura being Asura. Still, we appreciate the qualities of Vritrasura compared to the qualities of Indra in this particular episode. Then Indra again. Then we get to the previous life of Vritrasura, and that's the Chitraketu. And then we talked about the 14th chapter, where Chitraketu lamentation, and then the 15th chapter. So somebody who wants to give a little brief on the 14th chapter, the story of what Chitraketu is lamenting upon, the story that happened in 13th, 14th chapters. the Chitraketu story. Does anybody wants to give a little bit of what happened there? Hare Krishna, somebody who attended the 14th and 15th chapter, sorry, 13th and 14th chapters wants to speak a little bit about what's the story so far in terms of Chitraketu's life. Anybody? Hare Krishna? You can hear me, right?
Yes, Prabhu, you can hear.
So Chitraketu has is a nice ruler king, but he did not have a son. So in search of a son, or in wanting to have a son, he is married 1 crore women, and all of them have only given what do you call it, a birth to female children, but he wants a male child, and he laments on that. And in the chapter 14, we see that chapter 14, we see that Chitraketu lamentation was fulfilled by Angiras Rishi. He gives him the benediction that he will have a child, but the child will have because of the child he will have both joy and sorrow. Then Chitraketu thinks that what sorrow can a child bring? What sorrow can a child bring? Maybe he's going to be mischievous. After all, his son, he's a prince. Maybe problems of a prince that creates to the father. Nothing beyond that. He thinks and he says, "Okay, that's fine. I'll face the from the any negativity of having a child, but I want to have the joy of having a child." And then he was given the benediction of a child, and the child was born. And what happens after the child was born is that his other 99,99,999 queens get jealous of this particular queen that has given birth to a prince, and they poison the child. They poison the child and they kill him. And then the queen doesn't. The mother of the child does not realize that child has died, and then she tries to wake him up, and then she realizes the child has died. And then the king himself understands this, and he starts to feel sorry about it and sad about it, and he cries and all that stuff we have seen in the 14th chapter. So here are a few things we need to understand. So basically, what happened, we see similar things in the past, right? In the Dhruva story, we have seen where the king Suniti and Surichi son, the king does not like the Dhruva, and then but the queen Suniti did not do anything bad. Did not take any revenge-like activity, and she said, "Please take shelter of the Lord, and that will solve the problems." But in this case, these 99,999,999 queens, instead of taking shelter of the Lord, they have taken the whole thing into their own hands, and they have realized, or they have thought the sorry for the misery, their life's misery is the little child, and they decided to kill the child. So there are some parallels between the Dhruva story and this story, right? The parallels here being the dissatisfied queens, the neglected queen from the king, Suniti, instead of taking things into her hands, she depended on God. Whereas here, the collectively, all the queens, again, Suniti is a single lone mother. She suffered the negligence, but yet she took it as a devotee, and moved on. So the lesson for us is suffering is just part of the materialistic life, and we need to overcome it by taking shelter of the Lord. Instead, these 99 lakh plus queens, they have other queens to console each other. Each queen had 99,998 queens to give them company. But what happened? Instead of them taking the shelter of the Lord, they took things into their hands. The point here is that's the nature of materialistic world. That's the nature of materialistic world. That's the nature of Maya, right? You can take things into your own hands. Why does that happen? When you do not identify yourself with the soul, but you identify yourself with the body, then everything around materialistic problems can, I mean, you want to solve all the materialistic problems yourself because you have little dependence on God. So in the same way, King Chitraketu is also lamenting the death of his son because he is not identified. He is not identified or he's identifying his son as his son, identifying his son as my son. I am responsible for the life of this person. I am responsible for bringing this body into this world. And so when that body got separated, he started to feel sad again. Then here, no, Angirasa Rishi, whose benediction Chitraketu had the son, thought like, okay, it's my turn now to go and console him. Because again, it's not like, anybody, when you feel sad, such great sages come. But it does happen for great devotees, right? So, and he comes along with Narada Rishi. Again, the commonality here is Narada Rishi. Narada Rishi is the one who gave the mantra to Dhruva. And here at the end of this chapter, you will see Narada Muni again doing the similar thing to Chitraketu. So the great devotees, the Lord sends his devotees when he sees a devotee is in false, he's suffering because of his false ego. Rather, he's suffering because of he's not identifying himself with the Almighty. So God sends his devotees to do that connectivity, basically. So that's the gist of the 15th chapter. But we'll try to just read through the summary first, and then we'll get into the slokas, more into the philosophy. So chapter 15, the saints Narada and Angira Rishi instruct King Chitraketa. So does anybody wants to read the first two paragraphs here that you can see on the screen? Can somebody help me with reading these two?
Yeah, Prabhuji, I will read, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dandat Pranam, Prabhu.
Dandat Pranam, Prabhuji.
Dandat Pranam.
In this chapter, Angira Rishi, along with Narada, consoles Chitraketu as far as possible. Angira and Narada Rishi came to relieve the king from excessive lamentation by instructing him about the spiritual significance of life. The great saints Angira and Narada explain that the relationship between father and a son is not factual. It is simply a representation of the illusory energy. The relationship did not exist before, nor will it stay in the future. By the arrangement of time, the relationship exists only in the present. One should not lament for temporary relationships. The entire cosmic manifestation is temporary. Although not unreal, it is factual. By the direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, everything created in the material world is transient. By temporary arrangement, a father begets a child, or a living entity becomes a child of the so-called father. This temporary arrangement is made by the Supreme Lord. Neither the father nor the son exist independently. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. So the first of the chapter, the early slokas of the chapter reflects the temporariness nature of this materialistic world, right? See, the relationship did not exist before, nor will it stay in the future. This is true for any relationship, right? The journey, we come across lots of relationships in the lifespan of a person, right? When you travel in time, or every relationship grows with time and dies with time. That's the reason why we compare the life is like a journey, like a bus journey or a train journey between two stations, during which time you get into the train is going on, you get into a next station, and you get off in the Y station. By the time you got into the train, there are people already in the train, and when you are getting down, there are still people in the train. And when you are in the train, some people are getting in, getting out. And during the process, you make some acquaintances, and you know that that acquaintance will just last to the end of the journey. That's all, not beyond that, basically. And we know that, we see that, but when it comes to real life, we somehow think the relationships in life are eternal, are forever. And then when that relationship is broken, which is again the nature of the materialistic world is to break every relationship. When that relationship is broken, we start lamenting on that. Right? So this is what the first few slokas of the chapter explain, and then we get into the next. As the king listened to the great sages, he was relieved from his false lamentation, and then he inquired about their identity. The great sages represented who they were and instructed that all sufferings are due to the bodily conception of life. When one understands his spiritual identity and surrenders to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the supreme spiritual person, one becomes actually happy. So there is difference between the happiness and actual happiness. The happiness we try to seek ends with time, and that's the reason why we try to seek happiness again and again and again in search of real happiness. We see in that session again and again. Basically, why are we searching for happiness if we already found happiness again and again? Because that means the happiness we found is not really the real happiness, the actual happiness, right? I keep wondering, like, people, you see some videos, a surprise birthday party. People are so happy around that. I mean, and then the party ends and the life goes back on. Again, the next time another surprise thing happens, again, you're happy. I mean, basically, you're trying to look for different ways to create or generate or instigate a little bit of something called happiness, which is different from the rest of the day or rest of the life, and we consider that as happiness. When one searches for happiness in matter, one must certainly lament for bodily relationships. Self-realization means spiritual realization of one's relationship with Krishna. Such realization ends one's miserable material life. So what SSR means, what sense of self-realization means, what self-realization means, spiritual realization of one's relationship with Krishna, and such relationship or such realization ends one's miserable material life. So understanding what is end of miseries of material life is beginning of understanding what spiritual realization means. And once when you are able to make that switch just like that, that switch happens just like that. And once that switch happens, there is nothing else that you need to lament for in the materialistic world. The only thing that you're just waiting for is to end the miseries of material life. That should be the goal of this particular chapter, and that's what the Chitraketa's realizations are in presence of Narada Muni and says Angirasa. Let's try to read through some shlokas. So again, the first 8 shlokas talks about how Narada and Angirasa Muni Rishi instructed Chitraketu, right? See, the first 8 shlokas talks about how the sages have instructed Chitraketu, but the 9 to 16 shlokas glorify how the Chitraketu or the student glorifies the gurus Narada and Angirasa and requests for knowledge. These are 2 important aspects. One, you have found the guru. One, there is guru to instruct. But more than that, the 9 to 16 slokas represent the student's readiness to take the knowledge. Tadvidya pranipatena pariprastena sevaya state has to come before which knowledge can actually get into your minds. So the guru is always there. The knowledge is always there. The combination can sink in only the right ingredient is there to absorb it. And that's the 9 to 16 slokas should help anybody and everybody when reads to get into that state in which there is the material or the knowledge that is required, the knowledge that is required to detach you from materialistic world and attach you to spiritual world comes in only when you are in that state. And then 17 to 18 shlokas, Narada Muni and Angirasa Rishi enlighten Chitraketu. So once those 2 aspects are in place, then the actual process of the phenomena starts, basically the enlightenment process. And the chapter ends with Narada Muni, again, just like the way he did it for Dhruva Maharaj. He gives the mantra to Chitraketu that helps him get on to reach the ultimate Guru, Sankarsana. So let's talk about the first 1 to 8 shlokas. Let's go there. So again, these 8 shlokas talks about how relationships are not factual, okay? And then the union of male female are only just gives birth to body and not the soul, right? So let's start with the first shloka. Sri Sukam Vacha Vuchata Mutrika Vupante Patita sorry Vuchita Mutrika Upante Patita Mutrika Upamam Soka Abhibhutam Rajanam Audananta Sat Ukthabhi. See, Sri Sukadev Sri Sukadev Goswami said, Uchata, they spoke, Mrutaka, the dead body, Upante, near, Patitam, fallen, Mruta Upaman, exactly like another dead body, Soka Abhibhutam, very much aggravated by the lamentation, Rajanam to the king, Bodhayantu, giving instruction, Sat Uktibhi, by instructing that that are factual, not temporary. So Chitraketu is lying next to the body of his son like another dead body. And here Narada Muni and Angiresh Rishi have come in and they are talking. While the king Chitraketu, overcome by lamentation, lay like a dead body at the side of the dead body of his son, the two great sages, Narada and Angira Rishi, instructed him about spiritual consciousness as follows. And let's get to the next shloka. O king, what relationship does the dead body for which you lament have with you? And what relationship do you have with him? You may say that you are now related as father and son, but do you think the relationship existed before? Does it truly exist now? Will it continue in the future? So see, when somebody, so the king is so sad and is lamenting the death of his son, and then these rishis are speaking about it. Basically, they're asking the king, what relationship did you have with him when he did not exist in the physical form or in the physical body? At this point, that's just dead body. And what relationship are you having with the dead body? When you speak to it, is it responding? What relationship will you have it in the future? There will be a time when either you or the body with the son will go away first, and then you have no relationship with it. The instructions given by Narada and Angir Muni are the true spiritual instructions for the illusioned, conditioned soul. The world is temporary, but because of our previous karma, we come here and accept bodies, creating temporary relationships in terms of society, friendship, love, nationality, and community, which are all finished at death. These temporary relationships did not exist in the past, nor will they exist in the future. Therefore, at present moment, the so-called relationships are illusions. Here again, the words to pick up from this shloka, are the true spiritual instructions for the illusioned, conditioned soul. What is illusioned, conditioned soul? Does anybody want to explain?
The one who thinks he is a body and not the soul.
One who thinks he's the body and is not the soul. Okay. What else?
And conditioned soul means who is like fully influenced by the three modes of material nature: passion,
Okay.
ignorance, and goodness.
Okay. Influenced by the three modes of material nature. Okay. Any other definitions? Any other thought process? Well, I think you covered most of it, but yes. Because we have throughout Bhagavatam, we talk about conditioned soul. Especially in Puranjan Charitra is all about the relation between conditioned soul and materialistic intelligence. Right? So what conditions the soul? What conditions the soul?
Material desires, Prabhu.
Material desires. Okay, material desires. Okay. What any other things?
Three modes is conditioned by the three modes.
Is conditioned by the three modes. Okay. By constantly turning away from Krishna is the moment you started to turn away from Krishna, the conditioning of the soul started. Right? Then it gets suffused by the three modes of material nature. Then due to that, you have what do you call it? Material interest, and then you're illusioned by the material world, and then you're once you're starting to illusion yourself with the materialistic world, you start enjoying the things of the materialistic world. Once you start enjoying the things of the materialistic world, you start to identify yourself with the body because you have lost the true identity of the soul, right? So it Cheto Darpana Marjanam, basically, right? So it is like that mirror that is full of dust that has accumulated over period of life, over periods of life, over times, over lifetimes, basically, right? So in one of the lifetimes, if you start to look towards Krishna, one of the lifetimes you start to understand that you need to develop a relationship with Krishna. One of the lifetimes you start to understand the way to develop that relationship is bhakti. Then the conditioned soul start to become unconditioning process starts. The unlearning process starts. When the learning process of turning towards Krishna, again, what all you said is right. It is a condition. Definition of conditioned soul is something that is influenced by three modes of material nature. That means you are influenced by Maya more than Krishna, which means you are turned less towards Krishna and more towards Maya. Or you are turning more towards Maya because you have turned less towards. It's just a downward spiral that starts the moment you're turning away from Krishna. And the more you're turning away, the more the soul gets conditioned. And the more the soul gets conditioned, it enjoys temporary things and it laments when the temporary thing is lost. Right? The world is temporary, but because of our previous karma, we come here and accept bodies, creating temporary relationships in terms of society, friendship, love, nationality, and community, which are all finished at the time of death. Again, beautifully explained, right? The entire Bhagavad Gita is explained, I guess, here, basically. Because of our previous karma, we take, again, karma, why is karma is committed, or why do we do actions? That is because of our conditioned nature. Because of conditioned nature, you are doing certain karma. And because of that karma, you are desiring and deserving some certain bodies. And that is, those bodies are generating a temporary relationship in terms of family, society, friendship, love, nationality, and all that stuff. Again, which of all of them come to an end at the time of death. These temporary relationships did not exist in the past, nor will they exist in future. Therefore, at present moment, the so-called relationships are illusions. This is how Narada Muni and Angiras Rishi have started talking to Chitraketu. Let's get on to the next slide. O king, a small particles of sand sometimes come together and sometimes separated due to the forces of waves. Force of the waves. The living entities who have accepted material bodies sometimes come together and sometimes separated by force of time. This is a beautiful analogy, right? When you sit in a beach, you can see the waves coming and bringing in some sand particles. And then the two sand particles become friends before the next wave comes and takes away one sand particle. And then both the sand particles, the friends have now been separated. Right? They have no control of it in their own lives, basically. Just like that, two sand particles come next to each other and then they get separated. In the same way, two living entities come next to each other and get separated over a period of time, by the force of time, not by time. The word used is by force of time. You can You have no control on it, and you got to accept. When I was reading this, I was remembering of in childhood we used to be asked to write something like an autobiography of a coin, the life of a coin, how it happens. It starts from the mint and ends in the mint, and then something like that. I was thinking, like, you have fresh minted 100 rupee notes. You have two number notes next to each other, serial number notes. They both are together for some time, and afterwards you separate them and you give one note to somebody and one note to somebody, and they might meet again in their life, or they never meet again in their life, right? It's the same thing that is happening in everybody's life, and that is the nature of material nature, basically. And we struggle to understand and more even accept it. The misunderstanding of conditioned soul is the bodily conception of life. The body is material, but within the body is the soul. This is the spiritual understanding. So again, we talked about this. It's not very difficult to understand that the body consists of soul, but the understanding should be I am the soul, and for its existence, for it to move around, there needs a gunny bag, and that gunny bag is called this body. And that body, or the bag, can be big, small, black, white, wide, narrow, and all that shapes come in. And we get connected, we get attached to that, and we try to take care of the body, and not so much as we take care of the soul. And we realize that the body is constantly changing, because that's the nature of the body. That's the material, that's made of material body. We look at the mirror and we want the hair to be dark black, but over time it changes to gray, but we still try to push it back to making it look like black in one or other way. Basically, what it is it's just a reflection of the conditioning of the soul. We are not here to accept the material change that is constant in the material world. This is the spiritual understanding that we are the soul, and for it existence there is a body. Unfortunately, one who is in ignorance, under the spell of material illusion, accepts the body to be the self. He cannot understand that the body is matter. Like a small particles of sand, bodies come together and are separated by the force of time. And people falsely lament for unification and separation. Unless one knows this, there is no question of happiness. In Bhagavad Gita 2.30, it is instructed by Lord. देहिनोस्मित् यदा देहे कौमारं यौवनं जरा तथा देहनंतर प्राप्तिर्दिस्त्रत स न मुह्यति. As the embedded soul continually passes in this body from boyhood to the youth and to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. The realization of soul is not bewildered by such a change. We are not the body. We are the spiritual beings trapped in the body, not situated in the body. The word used here is trapped. Our real interest lies in understanding this simple fact. See, what is the fact that we need to understand? That I am body, I'm not the body, I am soul. No, not really. The fact that we need to understand is I am the soul, and I have been trapped in this stupid body. Our real interest lies in understanding this simple fact. Then we can make further spiritual progress. Otherwise, if we remain in bodily conception of life, our miserable material existence will continue forever. Political adjustments, social welfare work, medical assistance, and other programs we have manufactured for peace and happiness will never endure. We shall have to understand the sufferings of material life one after another. Therefore, material life is said to be Dukkhalayam Asaswatam. It is a reservoir of miserable conditions. Hare Krishna. So this one purport is just sufficient if we understand, just to forget everything and realize that we don't have a lot of time left, and start grabbing Krishna's feet and move on with whatever little left our life is. Right? Any questions on this, Prabhu's and Mataji's? Hey, Krishna?
No, Prabhuji.
Fourth shloka. Will somebody help me read this?
Can I read, Prabhuji?
Yes, Mata. Thank you, Mata.
Only translation, Prabhuji.
Yes, Mata. Translation.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. When seeds are sown in the ground, they sometimes grow into plants and sometimes do not. Sometimes the ground is not fertile and the sowing of seeds is unproductive. Similarly, sometimes a prospective father, being impelled by the potency of the Supreme Lord, can beget a child, but sometimes conception does not take place. Therefore, one should not lament over the artificial relationship of parenthood, which is ultimately controlled by the Supreme Lord.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
See, the shloka is saying, when we sow some seeds, not all seeds grow into the big trees, right? Some seeds will die at the very early stage, and that's true with lot of pregnancies also, right? I mean, it's said statistically 1/3 pregnancies are miscarriages, basically. So this we should understand. This is not in our hands. Sometimes a prospective father, being impelled by potency of the Supreme Lord, can beget a child, but sometimes conception does not take place. Therefore, one should not lament over the artificial relationship of parenthood. The word here, parenthood, is called artificial relationship. Can you imagine that? Parenthood being called an artificial relationship, which is ultimately controlled by the Supreme Lord. How many parents will agree with me or agree with the shloka and call that their relationship or their parenthood is just artificial and it is controlled by Supreme Lord? Understanding that is not an easy thing, basically. Right? We take pride in parenting. We take pride in everything that the child is doing, or we take distress in everything the child is not doing. More times the child is not doing the way you want it to be done, basically. Right? Here the Prabhupada speaks, a male female can only give way to another body, but now they have no right, or they have no command, or they have no understanding of what soul is coming into that body. That is up to the Supreme Personality of the Godhead. Only Lord can control what soul is coming into what body. And we think we own the child, and we think we own that soul also. Right? And so much so that as part of parenting, we try to make their lives more materialistic, or we condition their soul also by putting more materialistic thought into the process. That's how the society is today. Today it's made of, basically. So here Prabhupada is calling, and the sloka, the Sukadeva Goswami is calling, all that is artificial. That's an artificial relationship, which ultimately is controlled by God. The moment you understand this, that is controlled by God. That's a very important fact to understand. Parenting is controlled by God. What does that mean, really? What does that mean? Parenting is controlled by God. That means we are only representatives of God to take care of the child, as it is God's responsibility. He is fulfilling his responsibility of taking care of the children through us. So we are taking care of by taking care of the children, we are fulfilling God's desire, and that is considered as service to God. When you do that in that way, now your relationship with the child is there, but it is through God. So what happens is, so you build the relationship with the child by building your relationship with God, and by building the child's relationship with God, and ultimately you have the right relationship with the child as servant of the God to serve the child. Unless that relationship is discovered, it is going to be artificial and temporary. It happens in marriages, right? Most marriages, most people, when they get married at young, they look at each other more at bodily aspects than spiritual aspects at the time of marriage. When you are young, that's what happens. But over period of time, the relationship grows beyond body. The relationship between wife and husband grows beyond body. If it does not grow beyond body, it ends up in a divorce. If it does not grow beyond body, it ends up in an FI. When it grows up beyond body, if you look at really the truth in true sense, at least if you look at a generation older or 2 generations older, you will see when one of them died, the second person will almost automatically die within very few days or months, basically. So again, that's again looking at it a different aspect. But my point here is when the relationship cannot grow beyond body consciousness, it cannot last forever. The best way for a relationship to grow is by growing your relationship with God and by growing the other person's relationship with God. Then your relationship grows, and it grows better even after understanding it is temporary. Because in nourishing the relationship, you are serving the God. That's the aspect that Chitraketu was missing in his lamentation to the lost child. Right? Krishna will get to the next sloka. So anybody can help read the translation?
Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Translation and preparation of Prabhupada ki jai. O King, both you and we, your advisors, wives and ministers, as well as everything moving and not moving throughout the entire cosmos at this time, are in the temporary situation. Before our birth, this situation did not exist, and after our birth, it will exist no longer. Therefore, our situation now is temporary, although it is not false.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. We see this slogan, right? Brahmam Satyam Jagat Mithya, right? Brahma Satya Jagat Mithya. Jagan Mithya. So we'll say, a lot of people say that, many Mayavadi philosophers say this. Brahma is Satyam and the rest is all Mithya. But in real sense, it's not Mithya. It does exist. Whatever the Mayavadi philosophers are calling it as Mithya actually exists. Your relationship with your family exists. Your relationship with your neighbor exists. Your relationship with your society exists. Your relationship with your country exists. But then why do we call it Mithya? It only means it exists, but it does not exist forever. It is a temporary. The living being is factual. The Brahman, the living being, is factual, but the present bodily situation is false. According to Vaishnava philosophy, however, the present situation is not false, but temporary. So that's the point we need to understand. It's like a dream. A dream does not exist before one falls asleep, nor does it continue after one wakes up. The period for dreaming exists only between these two, and therefore it is false in the sense that it is impermanent. Similarly, the entire material creation, including our own creation and those of others, is impermanent. We do not lament for the situation in a dream before the dream takes place or after it is over. And so during the dream, during a dream-like situation, one should not accept it as factual and lament about it. This is the real knowledge. Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithyam means understanding that what is real and what is not real. And the one that is not real is called Mithya. Thinking it does not exist is not right. Because it does exist. That's what Vaishnava philosophy talks about. It does exist, but what exists is temporary, is what we need to believe in and work towards what is permanent. Hare Krishna. So let's get on to the 6th shloka. 6th translation. Can somebody read the 6th translation for me?
Hare
Can I
Krishna.
read, Prabhuji?
Santosh Aditya Prabhu. Sorry, Balamani Mataji na chautunaru. Chadavandamma Balamani Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Master and Proprietor of everything, is recently not interested in the temporary cosmic manifestation. Nonetheless, just as a body at the beach creates something in which he is not interested, the Lord, keeping everything under his control, causes creation, maintenance, and annihilation. He creates by engaging a father to beget a son. He maintains by engaging a government or king to see to the public's welfare, and he annihilates through agents for killing, such as snakes. The agents for creation, maintenance, and annihilation have no independent potency, but because of the spell of the illusory energy, one thinks himself the creator, maintainer, and annihilator. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. So here again, Sukadeva Goswami is saying the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the master and proprietor of everything, is not interested in the temporary cosmic manifestation. He's created this whole world. He himself said, it is my this thing that has created. Prakrite krimanani gunai karmani sarvasa ahankara vimunatmak kartahimati manyate. So he is created this, but he's not interested in this world. But why did he create? He created it because we are interested. Because the conditioned souls wanted it. I want to go and enjoy that. Similar, it's compared to a boy at the beach creating something which is not interested. The boy is compared to a Supreme Personality of Godhead who created this whole thing. But why did the God create it? He just created and he left it for us to enjoy, to fulfill our desires and desirabilities based on the desires. Again, we use the word this very often in the all the time, desirability and desirability. So in this story, Chitraketu Maharaj does not deserve a son. But in the previous chapters, we have seen Angira Rishi has given him a benediction of having a son. Because Chitraketu Maharaj is actually lamenting that he did not have a son. He's worried that he did not have a son. So much so that it is even impacting his duties as a king. So then God sends a disciple of him to give him a boon. So Prabhuji and Mataji, the lesson we need to learn is, if we lament on something and if that desire has been fulfilled, even though we do not deserve it, that means it's not even going to last long, and it is going to result in a sorrow that we need to lament. We suddenly get something because you pray God for something and God is going to give it. It is like a credit card thing. Basically, you used money that is not in your this thing, and there will come a day when the banker is going to punish you for it. Right? That's what happened in this case. So Chitraketu Maharaj has prayed for it, and the God has given it through one of his agents, a Maya. A Maya son was given, basically. A son that's not going to last longer. But because to fulfill and then because the Angiras Rishi came and gave that benediction, and through which a son was born, and then the king is lamenting, now Angira Rishi, along with Narada Muni, have come because they have the responsibility, because they are true Vaishnavas, and they take up the responsibility of creating Vaishnavas. They take up the responsibility of enlightening people to Vaishnavas, enlightening people to the real knowledge, and take them out of the Maya or bring them closer to Supreme Personality of the Godhead. They thought, now this is the right time. We have the responsibility of bringing Chitraketu Maharaj back onto the tracks of his true self or true realization self, basically. And so in this process, he creates by engaging a father to beget a son. He maintains by engaging a government or a king in public welfare, and he annihilates through agents for killing, such as snakes. Here we are given an example of different agents that actually separates you from a materialistic relationship that brings to you a point of lamentation that helps you understand the right knowledge. So this is what how Maya helps really, right? So brings you to a situation when you are what do you call it, fertile enough to accept God message or God philosophy, or brittle enough to break away from Maya's uh, relationship. Right, but because of a spell of illusionary energy, one thinks himself the creator, maintainer, and annihilator. Again, this is what we all think. We have things in our own control, but we have to understand that God is controlling, is the owner of what is controlling, though he is not interested in controlling it. Okay, the seventh shloka, is a translation. Santosh Aditya Prabhu, will you read it for me? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Am I audible?
Yes, Prabhu.
As from one seed, another seed is generated, O king. So from one body, the body of the father, through another body, and the body of the mother, a third body is generated, the body of a son. As the elements of the material body are eternal, the living entity who appears through these material elements is also eternal. Perfect. Shall I read the perfect, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu. Chalan, Prabhu.
From Bhagavad Gita, we understand that there are two energies, namely the superior energy and the inferior energy. Inferior energy consists of 5 gross and 3 subtle material elements. The living entity who represents the superior energy appears in different types of bodies through these elements by the manipulation or supervision of the material energy. Actually, both the material and spiritual energies, matter and spirit, exist eternally as potencies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The potent entity is the Supreme Person. Since the spiritual energy, the living being, who is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, desires to enjoy this material world, the Lord gives him a chance to accept different types of material bodies and enjoy or suffer in different material conditions. Actually, the spiritual energy, the living entity who desires to enjoy material things, is manipulated by Supreme Lord. The so-called father and mother have nothing to do with the living entity. As a result of his own choice and karma, the living being takes different bodies through the agencies of so-called fathers and mothers. Hare Krishna.
Krishna. See, the soul is eternal, the body is temporary, and you need few energies, like few sources, the mother and father, to come into the living, into a materialistic body. But one should understand, this is all the energy of the God at play, and it's nothing of your own, nothing of your own. The moment you are able to understand this, then the surrender starts. Right? So the first 8 slokas are bringing to a point where Chitraketu understands the nature of materialistic world, and then he's ready to surrender. Divisions of generalization and specification, such as nationality and individuality, are the imaginations of persons who are not advanced in knowledge. So here again, Sukadeva Goswami is saying, so this is the problem when you have not advanced in knowledge, the real knowledge of understanding what is true, what is temporary, and understanding what is the material energy and spiritual energy, and how to get to the spiritual energy while sitting in materialistic world. Right? And what is stopping them? We already seen in the previous shloka where we talked about the 24 elements that the body consists of, out of which the material elements are acting or conditioning the soul in such a way that you are not able to see the spiritual soul, basically the spiritual nature of the soul. Right? Right. So then we'll get on to the 9th shloka onwards. So the first 8 slokas we have seen, the relationships are not factual. The union and separation of jivas are due to the force of time. Lord's Maya is responsible for fertility and parenthood. Material relationships are temporary. The Lord creates, maintains, and destroys like a child playing in the sand. Parents can only can provide body and not the soul. Designations and positions are all imaginary and temporary. Once Chitraketu understood his relationship with his son, his relationship with the dead son, his relationship with the eternal soul, he is now is requesting Narada Muni and Angira Rishi for giving me this, please give me this knowledge. Then he starts inquiring, who are you, basically, who are you that have come here to help me, basically. Sri Sukadeva Goswami continued, thus enlightened by the instructions of Narada and Angira, King Chitraketu became hopeful with knowledge, wiping his shriveled face with his hand. The king began to speak. See, again, Prabhuji and Matajis, we need to understand the transition that is happening in King Chitraketu. And we have to put ourselves in those shoes and try to walk through the transition and understand where to surrender our what do you call, our attachment to materialistic world, and then where to start our spiritual journey. King Chitraketu said, you both have come here dressed like avadhutas, liberated persons, just to cover your identities. But I see that of all men, you are the most elevated in awareness. You know everything as it is. Therefore, you are the greatest of all great personalities. His surrender is similar to the surrender Arjuna had it to Krishna. Krishna, I am surrendering now. You know, you are my guru. I want to learn everything. Please help me, teach me, enlighten me. Brahmanas, who are exalted to the position of Vaishnavas, the most dear servants of Krishna, sometimes dress like madmen just to benefit materialists like us, who are always attached to sense gratification and just to dissipate our ignorance. These Vaishnavas wander on the surface of the globe according to their desire. Again, Chitraketu is saying, see, in his saying, see, two things are happening here in this shloka. Two things are happening here. He's ready to understand the other person is a Vaishnava and who have come to realize, who have come to give him the knowledge. At the same time, you can see his understanding. Just to benefit materialists like us who are always attached to the sense gratification and just to dissipate our ignorance. This shows the preparedness of a student who is ready to learn from the Guru. These Vaishnavas wander on the surface of the globe according to their desires. So this is another thing we should realize. The Vaishnavas are always there, wandering on the surface of the globe according to their desire. Only when we are ready to surrender, they appear. So they have realized that this is the right time to appear in front of Chitraketu. No, Chitraketu realized their appearance as the right time for him to surrender and get into the knowledge, seek the knowledge, basically, right? So in the 12th to 15th shlokas, he talks about all such great sages that have come to the world, basically. Oh, somebody wants to read this translation, Prabhuji?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, shall I read?
Thank you, Mataji. Padma Mataji, please read it. Mataji.
O great souls, I have heard that among the great and perfect persons wandering the surface of the earth to instruct knowledge to people covered by ignorance are Sanat Kumara, Narada, Ribhu, Angira, Devala, Asita, Apantaratma, that means Vyasadeva, Markandeya, Gautama, Vasishta, Bhagavan Parashurama, Kapila, Sukadeva, Durvasa, Yagnavalkya, Jatukarna, and Aruni. Others are Romasha, Shavana, Dattatreya, Asuri, Patanjali. The great sage Dhaumya, who is like the head of the Vedas, the sage Panchashikha, Hiranyanabha, Kausalya, Shrutadeva, and Ritadhvaja. You must certainly be among them. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you, Mataji. In this word, Jnana Hetanaha is very significant because great personalities like those listed in these verses wander on the surface of the globe, not to mislead the populace, but to distribute the real knowledge. Without this knowledge, human life is wasted. The human form of life is meant for realization of one's relationship with Krishna or Supreme Personality of the Godhead. One who lacks this knowledge is categorized among the animals. Hare Krishna. On the other day, I was reading the importance of Dasara festival, and one of the things they wrote is Madhvacharya was also born on Vijayadashmi. So when we come from the Madhva Sampradaya, basically, right? And it is written that Madhvacharya, in his journeys on the planet Earth, he even met Vyasadeva. So Madhvacharya is at a different time frame, and Vyasadeva is of a different time frame. But Madhvacharya actually met Vyasadeva, and there was a conversation between Vyasadeva and Madhvacharya, and then he continued with his journey. So basically, that was a big what do you call it? You can call it information, but more than that, instruction, but more than that, it is a realization. Then when I was reading this shloka, it appeared to me basically all these people are still roaming around on this planet Earth, basically. It's just that we don't recognize them, not because they're not there, because we are not there yet to recognize them, basically. It is only our preparedness that lets them reveal themselves and then get the right knowledge to us. Again, so if you are not in this direction, you are nothing but you are of the lowest amongst the mankind or the animal. You are equivalent to an animal, is what the shloka, the purport says. So let's get on to the next shloka, 16th shloka. Because you are great, because you are great personalities, you can give me the real knowledge. I am as foolish as a village animal, like a pig or a dog, because I am merged in the darkness of ignorance. Therefore, please ignite the torch of knowledge to save me. See how a student is pleading when a guru is there. He is just pleading for knowledge. He's lamenting. The lamentation phase has passed through, basically, right? He has now realized that the relationship is over. Now is the time to understand what real self is. And here is an opportunity, and he is understanding what his state is, and he's requesting, please give me the knowledge that is going to fulfill me, take me out of this misery, or the root cause of the misery, or my relation with the materialistic world. Here Prabhupada also writes the shloka for us. Om Ajnananda Timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Shikshanon Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. This gives the definition of the Guru. Everyone is in the darkness of ignorance. Therefore, everyone needs to be enlightened with the transcendental knowledge. One who enlightens his disciples and saves him from rotting in the darkness of ignorance is, in this material world, is the true Guru. So, in this section of the shlokas, we have seen how the nature of Vaishnavas, how they come across deserving disciples to enlighten them, and Chitraketu realized that aspect of the need for him to be gaining this knowledge, the real knowledge from Narada Muni and Angira Rishi, and then he surrenders onto them, just like the way Arjuna surrendered onto Krishna at the crossroads of Kurukshetra. The next 17 to 28 shlokas, because we're already at 8:30, I'm trying to go a little faster here. That the Narada and Angira Rishi enlightened Chitraketu. So that enlightenment process is seen in these shlokas. So now in the initial shlokas, Narada Muni and Angira Rishi reveals their identity, and then they gives him the relief from the false lamentation. Let's get on to those shlokas and see what that is. Shloka 70. Angira Rishi said, "Oh my dear king, when you desired to have a son, I approached you. Indeed, I am the same Angira Rishi who gave you this son. As for this Rishi, he is the greatest," says Narada, the direct son of Lord Brahma. So both of them have introduced themselves to the king, Chitraketa. My dear king, you are an advanced devotee of Supreme Personality of Godhead. See again, this clears up the question of why these people have why these rishis have come to Chitraketa, because they know, because they understand that he's a very advanced devotee of Supreme Personality of Godhead. To be absorbed in lamentation for the loss of something material is unsuitable for a person like you. Therefore, we have both come to relieve you from this false lamentation, which is due to your being merged with the darkness of ignorance. For those who are advanced in spiritual knowledge, to be affected by material loss and gain is not at all desirable. Whether we lose track of what we are, but if we are the true devotees or the advanced devotees of Lord, what is advanced devotee of Lord means, but understanding the position of Supreme Personality of Godhead, understanding our own position, then even if our own, if in our understanding of our own position, there are times you fall down, then Lord takes care of it by sending his disciples. You have seen that again and again in the entire Bhagavatam. When Indra falls, Mahavishnu comes and makes be the person to make truce with Prutu Maharaj. Similarly, in Daksha Yajna, we have seen God sending his disciples again to fix the problems between two of his devotees. So when devotees are in distress, this is how God takes care of them, basically. This is something we all need to understand and believe and have that faith, and then decide our path and make that surrender, basically. Right? Hare Krishna. So a devotee should always aspire to live in association of advanced devotees and engage in the service of Lord through the Parampara system. One should serve the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu through the instructions of the great Goswamis of Vrindavana. This is called what is it? Tendra Karna Sevi. While serving the lotus feet of the Goswamis, one should live in the association of devotees. Bhakta Sena Vasa. Bhakta Sena Vasa. This is the business of a devotee. While serving the lotus feet of Goswami, one should live in the association of devotees. This is the business of a devotee. If you want to call yourself a devotee, what business you should be engaged is, but just to serve and live in the association of devotees. A devotee should not aspire for material profit or lament for material loss. When Angira Rishi and Narada saw the Maharaj Chitraketu, an advanced devotee, has fallen in the darkness of ignorance and was lamenting for the material body of his son, by their causeless mercy, they came to advise him so that he could be saved from this ignorance. That's what the true Vaishnavas does to any devotee when he's falling down. They come to advise him to take him out of the darkness. Krishna. Let's get on to the next shloka, 20th shloka. Right, here again, Angira Rishi is saying, when I first came to your house, I could have given you the supreme transcendental knowledge. But when I saw that your mind was absorbed in material things, I gave you only a son who caused your jubilation and lamentation. So, unless we are not ready, see, we are qualified, we have the desirability, but we do not have the desire to take knowledge. Then the Vaishnava is waiting till the desire has cropped in, or is creating a situation when the desire has no option but to crop in your mind. Right? Angira Rishi is saying, you're a great devotee of Lord Krishna, Lord Krishna, but your mind at that moment has been so much preoccupied by a material desire of having a son, and so I gave you that benediction, and with that you had the jubilation and the lamentation, and now you have realized the darkness of materialistic world, and now you have come back to the true sense of understanding the God. Krishna. Somebody help read 21 and 23rd, 21 to 23rd.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu Sanjay Prabhu.
My dear king, Now you are actually experiencing the misery of a person who has sons and daughters. O king, owner of the state of Surasena, one's wife, his house, the opulence of his kingdom, and his various other opulences and objects of sense perception are all the same in that they are temporary. One's kingdom, military power, treasure, servants, ministers, friends, and relatives are all causes of fear, illusion, lamentations, and distress. They are like a Gandharva Nagara, a non existent palace that one imagines to exist in the forest because they are impermanent. They are no better than illusions, dreams, and mental concoctions. Hare Krishna. Guruji.
So what happens? What is happening here basically? So the verse describes the enlightenment of material existence. In material existence, the living entity possesses many things: the material body, children, wife, and so on and so forth. One may think that all these things will give him protection, but that is impossible. In spite of all these possessions, the spirit soul has to give up his present situation and accept another. In spite of the fact you have so many things around you, you have a nice house, you have nice insurance, you have access to doctors and everything, but nobody, none of them are able to stand between you and death. None of them are able to stand between you and taking birth to, or taking birth again in another body. The spirit soul has to give up his present situation and accept another situation. The next situation may be favorable or unfavorable, but even if this is favorable, one must give it up again and then accept another body. We wonder, we have right now we might have a favorable situation, but we cannot take it for granted. The situation might change any minute, and then the next situation might not be as favorable as our current situation is. In this way, once tribulation in material existence continues, a sane man should be perfectly aware of these things. These things will never be able to give him happiness. One must be situated in his spiritual identity and eternally serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead as a devotee. Gira Rishi and Narada Muni gave this instruction to Maharaj Chitraketu. We have seen such instructions, or we have seen stories of people living in that kind of what do you call it, balanced state of mind. No, not really balanced state of mind, but only single pointed state of mind, that they are here as servants of God. They should not get carried away by the ups and downs of the materialistic world. We have seen that especially in Jadabartha story. He is so knowledgeable, but he pretends to be Jada person, a less intelligent person, just to avoid materialist people with materialistic intelligence, bringing him to materialistic consciousness, basically, right? Yeah. So one should be aware of his own favorable conditions and make them more favorable, so much so that you do not come back to either favorable or unfavorable situation in future. It doesn't matter. You have to get into a situation where it doesn't matter what situation awaits for you, but you are not going to take it, and you are going to be in the presence of Supreme Personality of Godhead. That should be the goal. The 24th shloka. These visible objects like wife, children, and property are like dreams and mental concussions. Actually, what we see has no permanent existence. It is sometimes seen and sometimes not. Only because of our past actions do we create such mental concatenation, and because of these concussions, we perform further activities. So this is just a cycle, right? Because of our past karma, we are getting into situations. So, and because of situations, we are performing new karma. And because of new karma, we are getting back into a cycle of taking birth again and every time, basically. Somebody wants to read a little bit of this purpose, Prabhu?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Sanjay, Prabhu.
Prabhuji, purport wise, everything material is a mental concussion because it is sometimes visible and sometimes not. At night, when we dream of tigers and snakes, they are not actually present, but we are afraid because we are affected by what we envision in our dreams. Everything material is like a dream because it actually has no permanent existence. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes as follow in his commentary: Arthena Vyagra Sarpadana Vinayvya Dashyamanaha Supandi Bhange Sati Na Dushyante Tad Evam Daradev Vastava Vastu Bhutah Swapanadev Vastu Bhutascha Sarva Mano Bhava Mano Vasana Janyatva Mano Bhava. At night, one dreams of tigers and snakes, and while dreaming, he actually sees them. But as soon as the dream is broken, they no longer exist. Similarly, the material world is a creation of our mental concoctions. We have come to this material world to enjoy material resources, and by mental concoction, we discover many objects of enjoyment because our minds are absorbed in material things. This is why we discover many. This is why we receive various bodies. According to our mental concoctions, we work in various ways, doing various achievements, desiring various achievements, and by nature and the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Karmana Deva Netrena, we get the advantages we desire. Thus, we become more and more involved with material concoctions. This is the reason for our suffering in the material world. By one kind of activity, we create another, and they all are products of our material concoctions. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. So the mental concatenation results in actions. The actions are resulting in further mental concatenations. This is how mind is becoming conditioned soul. Soul is becoming conditioned soul. Right? We started with why we are so conditioned, why soul becomes conditioned. It is because of this cycle of action and concatenation. Right? So we'll get into the 25th shloka. The living entity in the bodily conception of life is absorbed in the body, which is a combination of physical elements. The five senses for gathering knowledge and the five senses of action along with the mind. Through the mind, the living entity suffers three kinds of tribulations. Adhyatmika, Adidhaivika, Adibhaudika. Adibhaudika, Adidhaivika, Adhyatmika. Therefore, this body is a source of all miseries. So, this is to understand the miseries, though we call it Adhyatmika, Adibhaudika, Adhyatmika. Adhyatmika is again not in our control, but for the suffering of it also happens because of the body. Because the body is the source of all miseries, even though the body is not responsible for some of the causes of such miseries. But because we are connecting ourselves with the body, we are connecting ourselves with the misery, though it doesn't matter what the misery is. Our connection to the misery is through our body, is the point we need to gather here. So here we'll read to the second paragraph, basically. So the fact is that living entity, while concatenating with the mind, creates the material concatenation, because matter is destructible. Through the material condition of the living condition, the living entity suffers. Otherwise, the living entity detached from all material conditions. When one comes to Brahman platform, the platform of spiritual life, fully understanding that his spiritual soul is no longer affected by the lamentation or hankering, as the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Bhota Prasannatma na sochati na kankshati. So when you are in that state of Brahma Bhota Sthiti, then you are not worried about any of the three miseries that comes to us, because you are not in connection with your body and you are beyond that state and you are in Brahma Bhota Sthiti. One who is thus transcendentally situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments nor desires to have anything. Again, in Bhagavad Gita, in 15.7 shloka, Bhagavan says, Mamayavamsa jivaloke jiva bhuta sanatana manas sastanindriyani prakriti sthani karshati. With the 6 elements along with the mind, 5 elements and sixth mind is the 6th element. The living entities in these conditioned worlds are my eternal fragment parts due to conditioned life. They're struggling very hard with 6 senses, which include with inclusion of mind, they call the 5 senses plus 6 term. So these 5 elements plus mind are the root cause of making a soul conditioned or making our life conditioned life. The living entity is actually part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is unaffected by the material conditions. But because the mind is affected, the senses are affected, and the living entity struggles for existence within the material world. So we talk about it this also lot number of times. The outermost layer are the senses, the sensory elements, and then the subtle body is inside. Within the subtle body, you have mind, intelligence, and the soul. When mind is in communication with the external elements, with the gross body, the more mind is in communication with the gross body, or the more mind is siding up with the gross body, the more conditioned the soul becomes. The more mind is not submitting to or not responding to all the requests submitted by the gross body and listens to intelligence, then the intelligence will start. When that intelligence takes shelter in sastric knowledge, it helps remove or it helps to make the soul unconditioned. Then the mind makes decisions for the then the intelligence makes decisions for the mind in the interest of the soul and not in the interest of the subtle gross body. Whenever mind is making decisions in the interest of the gross body, you are simply signing up for another body, basically. When the mind is making decisions for the body in the interest of the soul, you are simply erasing yourself from taking for taking another body, but to lead a life in the soul satisfaction of the for the benefit of the soul. That's what mind and intelligence should be used for. That's what those 2 instruments should be used for. When you realize that is meant for connecting this soul back to Supreme Soul or Supreme Personality of Godhead, basically. Right? So that's what is the realization that Chitraketu is getting from Narada Muni and Angirish. Therefore, O King Chitraketu, carefully consider the position of Atma. In other words, try to understand who you are, whether body, mind, or soul. Consider where you have come from, where you are going after giving up this body, and why you are under the control of material lamentation. Try to understand your real position in this way, and then you will be able to give up your unnecessary attachment. You will also be able to give up the belief that this material world or anything not directly in touch with service of Krishna is eternal. Thus, you will obtain peace. Exactly what we just discussed. When intelligence and mind are ready to understand the soul's constitutional position and connect it back to Supreme Personality of Godhead, then you discover what is eternal, and then you will obtain peace. Until then, you are going to lament for something that is materialistic. The Krishna consciousness movement is factually endeavoring to bring human society to a sober condition. Because of a misdirected civilization, people are jumping in materialistic life like cats and dogs, performing all sorts of abominable, sinful actions and becoming increasingly entangled. The Krishna consciousness movement includes self-realization because one is first directed by the Lord Krishna to understand that one is not the body, but the owner of the body. When one understands this simple fact, he can direct himself towards the goal of life. Because people are not educated in terms of goal of life, they are working like madmen and becoming more and more attached to material atmosphere. The misguided man accepts the material condition as everlasting. One must give up his faith in material things and give up attachment for them. Then one will sober and peaceful. One will be sober and peaceful. Right, Krishna. So that's pretty much actually the end of the chapter as far as the realization is concerned. So any questions till here so far, Prabhuji and Mataji? Then we'll go to the last two slokas. This is the truth we need to understand. I mean, this is not first time we are discussing. This is not first time. This is said again and again, but we need to, and it will be said again and again. We need to hear it again and again until we come to that state again. I'm talking about for myself, Prabhuji and Mataji. I need to hear it again and again, read it again and again, until we come to that state where we are able to serve God. We are able to serve God and want to enjoy that relationship with God unconditionally. Until then, you're living with conditioned soul. Right? Hare Krishna. So the last two shlokas here, the great sage Narada continued, my dear king, attentively receive from me a mantra which is more auspicious after accepting it from me. In 7 nights, you'll be able to see Lord face to face. So don't worry about lost son. Here is the mantra. Take care of this, and you are going to see the God in 7 days. My dear king, in former days, Lord Shiva and other demigods took shelter of lotus feet of Sankarsana. Thus, they immediately got free from the illusion of duality and achieved unequaled and unsurpassed glories in spiritual life. You will very soon attain that very same position. So here, Narada Muni has actually given him the mantra, initiated him with the mantra, that so much so that he's going to take shelter of Sankarsana, and he's going to Sankarsana Loka, basically, right? And that's what gurus or the Vaishnavas do to elevated devotees, and that's how Chitraketu has moved from a position of lamenting to a position of enlightenment, a position of ready to be enlightened, ready to receive the knowledge, and then was enlightened by Narada Muni and Angira Rishi. And then he gets the mantra to see Lord Sankarsana. And that's the end of 15th chapter. Thus the Bhaktivedanta purports of 6th canto, 15th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Saints of Narada and Angira Rishi instruct King Chitraketu. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Mataji. So that's the story of fifth canto, 6th canto, 15th chapter. The three fundamental sections that we discussed. How one laments when he is in a materialistic filled, when his mind is filled with materialistic desires, to a point where he realizes that it's not permanent, and then he surrenders to a Vaishnava, and a Vaishnava like Narada Muni, a spirited soul, a devotee like Narada Muni comes to rescue, give, instruct, and enlighten Chitraketu to take his path, basically. Hare Krishna. Prabhu. Prabhu's Mataji, if I said something wrong, please forgive me. It's any mistake is more of my misunderstanding than what these instructions are from Sukadeva Goswami and Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Any questions? Let's discuss for a few minutes. Hare Krishna. Any questions, Amma? Because it's already almost close to 9.
No, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, thank you.
Hare Krishna, Srinivas Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Hare Krishna,
Prabhu.
Subbarao Prabhuji, Dandavad Pranam Prabhuji.
Pranam Prabhu. Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Dhanavad Pranam Prabhuji. Excellent speech. Excellently, you have told heart-touching points. Very, very heart-touching. Everybody should know. Excellent speech. Okay. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol.
Lilananda Prabhu, you are saying something.
No, I was only grateful to Srila Prabhupada that, 2-3 times in a week at least, when we read this Bhagavatam together,
Yeah.
We are reminded of the same thing again and again. Like
Right.
you were saying, we are reminded again and again.
Right.
So my only prayer would be that someone reminds me personally at the time of death the same thing again. Thank you, Prabhuji, for reminding again.
Hare Krishna. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna Prabhuji, Dhanwad
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Nama Swapna Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare
so much
Krishna.
for the class and guidance.
Krishna Prabhu Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam Prabhu. Dandavat Pranam Prabhu.
Hare
Many-
Krishna Prabhu Dandavat Pranam. Thank you very much, Prabhu, for wonderful.
Hare Krishna. If there
Hare
are,
Krishna, Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you so much.
thank you Mataji, thank you Shilpa Mataji for the
Prabhuji,
opportunity.
Dandavat Pranam.
Thank you so much.
Dandavat Pranam,
Thank you
Prabhuji.
so
Hare
much for
Krishna.
wonderful session, Prabhuji.
If you don't have any questions, then probably close the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for being part of this
Okay,
chapter
thank you,
journey
Prabhuji.
for me. And please bless me. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
I'm leaving Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Okay, Prabhuji, I'll conclude the session.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, thank you.